without further ado, I will introduce the first speaker, David Ngo. Jadi Mas David ini, I'm gonna introduce you in bahasa Indonesia. Just trust me, it's not gonna be harmful for you. Okay. Mas David ini sekarang lead PM di Grab. Dia sama gue di Growth Team juga. So dia dulu dari Silicon Valley, dia dulu di Stanford, kuliahnya Aerospace Engineering. Terus ya udah bayangin itu temennya Elon Musk ya, itu kan jadi PM tuh. Nah, gimana tuh bisanya? Iya kan? Ya. Gitu lah ya. Oke, apa ya?
Oke, selamat malam. Terima kasih sudah datang.
Yes.
That's all I know. The rest of this is going to be in English, okay? Okay, so everyone knows we're going to talk about minimum viable product. The thing that you should know about minimum viable product is it's a process, okay? It's a way of thinking. It's not just a physical thing, right? So the most important thing that I want you guys to take away from this, if you guys forget everything that I say in the next 30 minutes, I want you to remember to focus only on that which is essential, okay? What that means is figure out what's the most important thing to build, and then build that, right? That's your job. So when you go back to your companies, when you talk to your colleagues, when you're thinking about your project you're gonna work on, your boss, really think about what is the most important thing to work on, okay? So MVP is a process that allows you to do that, allow you to focus on that which is essential. So you might be looking at me and thinking, why am I listening to this guy? He looks like he's just out of high school or college. Whatever age you think I am, I'm like 10 years older than that. I'm 37 years old. I have 15 years of experience as an engineer, designer, founder, product lead. As Dilla said, I was an aerospace engineer, did some projects with Northrop Grumman, NASA, SpaceX, became a designer, learned about design thinking from Stanford and IDEO, was a design lead at Google and a bunch of other startups and consultancies, tried my hand at founding my own startups as well, and became a product lead for many different companies in chat, healthcare, hospitality, and now with Grab. Okay, I joined Grab about 4 or 5 months ago, moved to Singapore, but I came straight from Silicon Valley in San Francisco. So the other reason why you should be listening to me, I think, is I've actually had a lot of failures in my career. And the best way to learn, to be a better product manager, to be a better person, everything comes from failure. Okay, so don't be afraid of it. It's how you learn to be better. And the whole point of MVP is that it gets you comfortable with the idea of failing. And gets you comfortable with the idea that of looking at failure as a way to learn. Okay, so learning is the most important thing that you can do. Let's look at some failures. Does anyone know what this computer is? It's called the Lisa. So it's a very old computer built by Steve Jobs himself. He put so much passion, so much time and effort into this computer, he named it after his daughter, Lisa. This is the first computer to have a graphical user interface, to actually have an interface that's visual, right? And it had a mouse. Back in the day, this is amazing, right? Amazing features. So you would think when he launched it, it'd be a big success. It failed. Why did it fail? He built it way too many features, right? These are all things that were, at the time, very, very expensive to build. So the price tag, when it came out, was $7,000. Okay, now even today, can you imagine paying $7,000 for a computer? You can't, but in the amount of money that it would be today is $25,000 USD for this one computer. So he was trying to sell it to corporations, to companies, because he thought, they would be able to afford it. They weren't able to afford it. They said, we don't need this stuff. We actually will go with IBM, which was a much cheaper model. So it totally failed. Facebook phone. Obviously, no one in this room, I guarantee, has a Facebook phone, so everyone knows this was a big failure. But why did someone as big as successful as Facebook was able to fail so hard? Well, they had a business motivation. They didn't want to be in the in the hands of Apple or in the hands of Google. They wanted to have their own phone in the market, right? So great. We're going to have a phone. We're going to have a Facebook operating system. We're going to partner with the biggest names in the business. AT&T is going to sell it. HTC is going to build a phone. It's going to be amazing, right? When they came out, no one bought it. They actually even tried to give it away for free, and no one would take it. And they could have easily tested this, right? You could have asked some people, hey, do you want a phone where Facebook is your operating system? Like, they could have tested all those things, but no, they just wanted to spend a whole bunch of money and launch it and see what happened. And it just failed. So not just big companies do this, but small companies do too. So in Silicon Valley in 2010, there was an amazing company called Color Labs. There was so much hype behind this company. They raised $41 million before they even put a product out. They had major investors, all the important ones. They even got an acquisition offer to be bought by another company before they even put a product out. That's how much hype was behind this. They spent $400,000 to buy Color.com. They spent a whole bunch of money building an entire building for their company when they only had 30 people, right? They really believed in this product. What the product was Instagram, but only for people that are close to you, right? So if we all were at a concert, we're taking pictures, you could see everyone else's pictures in that same feed, right? Kind of an okay idea. But they didn't have any beta testers. They didn't release anything before the launch. They didn't test their product on anyone. They just were like, we believe in this product, we have a bunch of money, a bunch of marketing money behind it, and we're just gonna launch it. Just like the other ideas, people tried it out, it was way too confusing, right? There wasn't any content to look at because basically you can only look at content of people who were close to you, right? So to everyone, it just seemed like an empty social network. So that really failed, and that was like the poster boy for failure in Silicon Valley back then. And I want to give an example from my own career. One of the startups I tried to find was a mobile gaming startup. We had our first game, which was called Can Cat. We had 2 million downloads, featured by Apple internationally. Big success. But it was a free game, right? We just wanted to get people to play a game and use it. Our next game, we wanted to make some money off of it. So we played a free-to-play game, really complicated. The idea was actually a Harry Potter simulation game. So basically, you ran your own wizard academy, trained some wizards. Really fun idea, right? I still love the idea. But it took 4 to 5 years to develop, right? And we actually ran out of money before we could finish it. And the thing about this is not necessarily that we didn't test it for anything. It's that this product, video games, is too hard to apply the MVP model to. So there's certain products that actually MVP does not apply to. So things that are very complicated or things that require a lot of investment money. So for instance, a pharmaceutical drug or a new commercial airline or a rocket ship, right? Like these are things that are way too complex, way too big, way too much money. You can't really apply an MVP to. So what happens is, this is the process that leads to failure, right? And this is the thing that we don't want you guys to be doing, which is basically waterfall, right? So you have an idea, you say, I really want to build a Jeep. I think people really need this Jeep, right? To get from point A to point B. And so you just develop it in secret, right? You're just like, I have this great idea, I'm a genius. We're just gonna build this thing out. We're gonna take all the time we need, and then we're gonna have this big launch and just see if people want it. But at the end of the day, most people don't want it. And that's how most of the companies fail. And this happens for startups too, right? Startups that they think they're using MVP, they say, okay, we have Scrum, we have sprints, we have our engineers every week, they're building stuff. That's what MVP is, right? They do that, and 42% of them still fail because you do not make something that the market wants. And the reason is they're applying the same exact model. The only difference is they're asking a few people along the way, hey, what do you think? What do you think, right? But at the end of the day, Scrum and iteration doesn't mean that you're actually pivoting. Doesn't mean you're actually listening or you're actually willing to change your original idea. A lot of times you might find in a company, the CEO says, hey guys, you gotta go make a Jeep, okay? It's your job, go make that Jeep, right? And you're doing your sprints, and you're trying to build this Jeep. And you're asking people along the way, hey, do you want these 2 wheels? And they're like, why would I want these 2 wheels? Do you want this? Why would I want that? And so you bring that feedback back to your boss or to your team, and everyone says, oh, well, the reason why they don't like it is because they haven't seen this yet, right? Once they see that, I swear they're gonna love it, right? But when they do, they don't, right? And so the idea is to actually listen and to actually be of the mindset that, hey, this original idea of the Jeep might not be the real idea, right? So when you're building a product, I want you to think of it as this. You're like on a boat, okay? And you're building the boat as you're floating, and you need to find out which direction to go, right? And you want to have your customer there with you on that boat, okay? You want to be able to talk to them, say, hey, is this the right direction? What do you think? Is this where we should go? Let me build this other thing. Do you think, is this right? Is this right? The customer might not even know what they want, right? They just have an instinct. They're saying, I like this, or I don't like this, or this feels weird, right? They don't know exactly what you should do, but they do know if you're going in the right direction, right? So you have to be willing as a team and as a product manager to be able to say, hey, we're going the wrong direction. I know you said you wanted this Jeep, but we should really go this other direction, right? So this is what your process should actually look like. So let's say you have a customer who wants to get from point A to point B. And you start off with the minimum viable product for that customer. That might be a skateboard, right? It's really simple. I got some 2 wheels, got a piece of wood. Let's show that to them. So they look at it and they're like, yeah, I guess that does take me faster from point A to point B, but I feel really unsafe on this thing. Okay, come back with a scooter, put a little handle on it. Oh yeah, I do feel safer. I can actually go faster now that I feel more stable. Great. So as you're having this conversation with your customer, you realize, okay, it's not about the thing that I'm building. What is the thing that I should be learning? Well, I'm actually finding that the customer values speed and they value safety, comfort. So I'm going to accentuate that. I'm going to make it faster and I'm going to make it more comfortable, right? And then maybe you eventually get to the Jeep and maybe they're really happy with that. But the key here is you didn't know that this is the thing they want. They might actually be happy with the bike, right? Then you don't have to spend all this money building this Jeep. You'd be like, hey guys, the market only needs this bike and we could build it for a lot cheaper. And that's the price point that they want, right? Or maybe as early as the skateboard, they're looking at it and they're saying, oh, actually the place I want to get to is across the river. I don't even want anything on land. I want to build a boat, right? So you're like, okay, I need to build a canoe. This Jeep thing has nothing to do with it. I'm going to build a boat and a yacht or whatever, right? So this constant customer feedback is what you need to build into your process, and you have to be able to test your assumptions, right? So the other part about minimum viable product that people get really hung up is the product side, because they don't know exactly what that means. I mean, they have to build a whole thing, like a physical thing, or does it have to be real? The thing is, an MVP can be anything. It could be an advertisement. It could be like Kickstarter where you have a video. You just have a video saying, hey, this is the future. Do you guys want this? Like, that's answering a question. Or it could be an app, it could be a website. It could be many different things. The way I want you to think about it is trying to get a signal. What is the least thing that you have to build in order to get a positive or negative signal? And by signal, I mean some sort of answer to a question. So at the end of the day, the most important thing about MVP is asking the right questions. So I'll give you an example. Does anyone know who this guy is? His name is Tony Hsieh. He's from America. I think his offices are in Vegas now. He started a company called Zappos. Is anyone familiar with Zappos? Right, so his idea was to have an online shoe store. And at the time, there was no other website like it, right? So what do you think is the most important question that he should answer, or the riskiest assumption that he's making? It's an online shoe store. Does anyone? So the question he probably should be asking, right, is anyone willing to buy shoes online, right? That's the most important thing because that's the new thing that he's testing. So his MVP was this really crappy website. He just put up Zappos.com. This is the actual first website he put on. The world's largest shoe store, right? A very clear value proposition. He's saying free shipping, no sales tax, right? That's the value proposition. Hey, no risk, buy some shoes, free shipping, try it on, right? And then he had a bunch of shoes that you could buy. How do you think he made this? Like, he doesn't have a whole bunch of shoes. He doesn't have a whole bunch of shippers and deliverers. He just has a website. So what did he do? He actually went to every single shoe store in his area, took a picture of every shoe on the shelf, then put those pictures of shoes in different categories and put them on his website with a price tag. And then when someone would click, he would literally go to that shoe store, buy the shoe from the store, and then send it to them in the mail, right? It's great. He could just fake the whole service, but at the end of the day, he was trying to answer one question. How many clicks am I getting on this website, and for which products? Because he's learning, right? He's like, what types of shoes? Is it women's shoes that people are buying? Is it men's shoes? Is it athletic? He can learn a lot from this very quick website, right? The other aspect that people always ask is, well, how viable is viable, right? Like how crappy should this prototype be, and how good should it be, right? Because people are thinking, oh, I don't want to do MVP because all that means is building something really crappy, right? And then people will of course, they'll hate it because it's built really bad, like it's built really quickly, no one will like it. Or they go on this side and they're like, well, I don't want to have bad feedback, so I'm just going to spend a whole lot of time making this thing really awesome, right? But then they get into that other previous failure process we talked about before, right? So people are always asking, you know, what spectrum should I be on when I'm building my MVP? The question, the really answer to this is, what is your hypothesis? What is your question you're trying to answer? And then two, what is your competition doing, right? So for instance, if I was coming out with the next TikTok, or the next Instagram, or the next iPhone, I would have to make something pretty good, right? Because the users that you're testing with have a standard. They already have a standard. It has to be this type of level of experience. It has to be this quality of a phone, right? And so you do have to build something that's at least on par with your competition, but slightly different, right? And you can be very clever. You can fake things. I definitely welcome you guys to fake as much as you can, right? But there's a certain bar. But if you're doing something that no one is doing and has never done before, you can make it as crappy as possible, just like Zappos, right? No one has ever done an online shoe store before then, so just put up some website. It doesn't have to be nice, right? Let me give you a very concrete example from my own experience. This was the name of a startup that I tried. It's called Partage. The idea was basically, you have a bunch of people who have, I'm sure all of you have things in your house, in your apartment, that you never use, right? You bought it once and you're like, I don't know, I use this maybe in the summertime. I use a tent or something when I go hiking, but most of the year I don't use it, right? Or my GoPro, I only use it when I go out like bicycling, but other than that, I don't really use it. So what if you could rent out those products to other people, right? You could make some side money, and other people could rent from you, and you could rent from other people. So this was the idea of the startup, and I gave myself consciously 6 months. I said 6 months, I want to test this idea and see whether it's something worth investing in, right? So I had many different hypotheses. My first hypothesis was, my first question was, hey, what products do users want to rent, and what do they want to rent out? I didn't have to build a service. All I just knew was do some surveys, interviews. I literally knocked on people's doors in my neighborhood, asking them, hey, here's this new service. What in your house would you want to rent out? And what would you rent from other people? That was a really, really easy thing to do. Also, I wanted to see what demographic, what kind of person would want to rent things from a mobile app, right? I just made a fake ad for this service, and whoever clicked it, I could figure out what type of person they are, what age they are, what kind of female or male. When I get to more complicated questions, I start needing to build some products, right? So are users willing to rent out their own household goods? So I built an app, basically allow them to upload, take a picture of, say, like a GoPro, set a price, and then put it out in the market. And then I would fake it. I would go out and I would pretend to be a customer, rent it, come to their house, pick it up, and then give it back to them a week later and pay them, right? And on the other side, actually part of the app would fake the buying side. So basically, I would put up really high value items like a GoPro, blender, and a tent. And then if someone clicked it, same like Zappos, I said, I went to the nearest Target, the nearest supermarket, bought that item, and then I would deliver it. I would put on my little Partage t-shirt, roll up in my car, and then show up to their house and be like, hey, here's your product. I'll come back in a week and pick it up from you, right? And so I was able to test both sides of that market. It turned out that most people wanted to rent their items, but a lot of people didn't spend a lot of time wanting to rent other people. And immediately within that 6 months, I realized, okay, this is not really a good business. Like the margins aren't really big enough. So I didn't even have to go to an investor. I didn't have to break any relationships. I didn't have to spend 3 years of my life on this idea to test it out and figure out what is viable or not. So this is the thing to answer to that, like how crappy or how awesome it should be, right? It really depends on the question you're trying to answer. So Adi will go into more of this process of what this MVP process looks like, but everyone's pretty familiar with you're building the product, and then you have to measure it, you have the right instrumentation to see how users are using it. You look at that data, you analyze it, and you get some sort of learning from that data, right? And you say, okay, so I had this hypothesis. Did it turn out to be that they liked this part of the product? Oh, did it turn out they actually weren't clicking on this part of the product, even though we thought that was a really important part. They actually liked this part more. So from that learning, then you come up with the next hypothesis. Okay, well, if they like that part of the website or the app, then maybe I need to expand on that. So maybe my next MVP will be something around there. So the last thing I want to say is, a lot of times as product managers, your boss and your team members are all focused on this area, right? They want to build stuff. Let's build stuff. Let's build stuff and test it. Let's build stuff, build stuff, build stuff. The thing is, being really productive and building a lot of things doesn't mean that you're actually making any progress. Because the only thing that's really determining whether you're successful is if you're working towards the right direction, right? And that's where your job as a product manager is most important. They're looking to you to figure out what is the learning from this data and what should we build next. Because you can build a million different things, right? But it's your choice as to what to build first. And then what that means is you have to prioritize. Pick out the thing that is most essential. What is the assumption? What is the question that is the riskiest thing that your company is assuming right now? So with that, I'll hand it over to Adi, but again, I want to leave you with this concept that you need to focus on only that which is essential. So as my colleagues have mentioned, we're actually looking for a product manager to join us on our Indonesian team for growth. Growth at Grab is essentially kind of like an incubator, kind of like a startup within a big company. So we are tasked with coming up with the next big thing, right? Trying out new experiments, testing things out. So that's why I came to Grab. I have a lot of startup experience, and I'm trying to build a good team, both in Singapore and Indonesia. So we're looking for product manager. If you're interested, please email me or reach out to me after the talk. So thanks for listening, guys. I hope it was useful.